Hello and welcome to For Azeroth. I'm one of your hosts, Sean, and today I'm joined by the incomparable Tile Queen of Connecticut, Lex. Oh, am I allowed to say where you live? Manny never doxes.
You're wrong.
Manny?
I always avoid doxing her, but you know what? It's your show. Go for it.
You guys can just pick. Apparently, we're picking random states.
Yeah.
So feel free to do that.
I actually think I know the real state now, but I'm going to stick with Connecticut. The land of no taxes. Wait, that's not Connecticut, is it?
Surely not.
No.
Been to New Hampshire? Oh, you're thinking of New Hampshire, actually.
I am thinking of New Hampshire. Yeah, but that's not where I think you live. But I'm not going to say where I think you live because after reading the YouTube comments, we got to be careful. We have to protect our Lex. Lex, how has the World of Warcraft been treating you?
It's been treating me very well. We are working on Dimensius in my guild, my raiding guild, which is hard, but that's okay. We're going to get it. We're holding right now, so we're just going to keep pushing there. And then other than that, just playing through Alpha, having a good time, getting stuck in delves because it's buggy, but that's okay. It's Alpha.
Love it. Is Dimensius hard or is the guild hard? I'm trying to parse what you said there.
Dimensius is hard. The guild is low.
Dimensius. Okay. Guild easy. Dimensius hard. Yeah, I get it. We're also working on Dimensius in my guild. We saw P2 Platform 2 and got Pargoth, that's the mini boss there, down to 6%. So we almost had a P3 pull after only 102 pulls in Mythic, and that's pretty good. We are blasting.
I don't know Mythic, but I feel like at least with Heroic, it does feel like the type of fight where like once you hit P3, you're kind of home free, right? Like,
No.
oh, okay, interesting.
P3 is like really hard. It's the hardest part of the fight.
Really?
Yeah, you're going to hit P3 and then spend more nights progging.
Interesting, because on normal, P3 was cake.
Yeah, that's normal, Lex. You're so far above normal.
It's true. We're a step above normal. We're
on Heroic, I actually found that, it was like home stretch territory. I think when we hit P3, it was...
Yet.
Yeah, Manny, don't talk.
Do you remember that time when I tried to talk and you hadn't introduced me? And you rolled up that newspaper and smacked me on the nose with it? Well.
I think that was a new shot.
Of course, we are also joined by the other co-host. We are tri-hosts, co-hosts. We're tri-hosts. So
well, it can be both. Just means multiple, right?
Oh, does it?
Yeah, co doesn't mean two.
Oh, hey. I thought co meant two.
Just collaborative, cooperational.
Yep.
Doesn't need to be.
Well, I don't collaborate with either of you. I consider this an adversarial relationship.
That's right. Lex does all of her tiling and bathroom renovations solo. Manny, how has the World of Warcraft been treating you?
So I gotta say, it's weird being on this side. I never talk about my my time in World of Warcraft. Yeah, weird. I've been enjoying WoW. I've been trying to like collect a bunch of things that I've left behind as we've been going through the war within. Rating's done. We got our AOTC. We're not pushing into Mythic. I have been doing the mount hunting. Been trying to like make a bit of gold. Liquidated everything out of my war bank because I needed to get rid of that before all the prices crashed. That was good. It was another 1 million gold-ish. Think it was around there. So I'm happy. Plus, we got the 12-month mount, and it's always nice to have those shinies. So I'm doing good. But most of my time is in the alpha right now.
How do you feel about the 12-month mounts? Are you like pro 12-month mount gifts? Because they used to be 6 months, right? It used to be 6 months, and
they are both 6 and 12 months. There is an extra mount for 12, I think. Or is it just that they're always giving them out once a year? Either way, I know that you get something for 6 months for paying like the amount where they used to have lulls, and they're like, yeah, just keep paying us up front, and we'll give you this shiny mount, and it worked on me because shiny mount.
Okay, so we're pro mount. How do you feel, Lex? Where do you land on the free mounts from Blizzard?
So I like them because I think it's fun to have extra mounts. But the thing is, because I know it's just a like, look, you spent a lot of money in a certain chunk. I never use them the same way that I never use shop mounts. And I want to be really clear. I never judge other people if I see them. Sorry, my dog is itching her collar. I don't know if you can hear her rattle.
That's a Manny. That's an editor Manny problem. That's
Yeah, if editor Manny has figured out how to remove noise from the person who's actively speaking's mic, frankly, he needs to be on a significantly higher level show.
Da Vinci has
No,
a button.
yeah.
It's called voice isolation, and it
Wait,
removes everything
what?
other than your.
So
Yeah,
voice
it's like a
isolation,
single button.
or because it was going when you weren't talking, I can just isolate that sound separately.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, Da Vinci has a voice isolation button. I used it. I had to edit a video the other day where somebody was walking their dog outside, and you could hear all of the sounds of outside and dog sounds, and I just hit voice isolation, and it was like they were in a closet by themselves.
I'm never feeling bad for Manny for being our editor again. I didn't realize it was that easy.
Yeah, it's
Not
super
really,
easy.
Manny. I know you work really hard. You do a lot, and we love and appreciate you so much. And I don't know what we like. Literally, I don't know
But
what
I
we'd do
do
without
video
you.
editing now. It's like more work on top. Off topic. Let's keep going. Y'all
I'm
never
supposed
appreciate
to
me.
do that. I'm hosting. I'm going to let us veer as much as I feel like we can veer, Manny. Speaking of veering, Blizzard veered from their plan in Legion Remix. So we get some Legion Remix news. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Now, I know for those of you who are longtime listeners, last week probably remember all three of us saying, we're not really interested. But, spoiler alert, I'm now massively addicted to Legion Remix. So, we're going to talk about a little bit of the Legion Remix news. I played it for the first time after the show last week, and there is the section when you go to the class order halls and you start doing the class order hall campaigns, and you get a quest to like do the warband table, or you get a quest to take 250 seal pelts to Jebediah Scrooge. And as soon as you get those quests, Moritari, the dragon who's not Eternus, pops up with a little talking head and says, listen, we're not here for that. We're going to skip it. And they auto-complete it for you. And like a half a dozen times during the class hall campaign, she pops up and she's just like, nope. Or pass, and you skip them. And I instantly fell in love with Legion Remix. And then I paired it with the completionism website where it checks off the things you've done, and addiction hooked. Anyway, a little bit of Legion Remix news, because there was some nerfing that happened to people who had infinite power of over 10 million. If you remember in Mop Remix, early on in Mop Remix, there was frog farmers who intentionally blasted frog farming to get unintended levels of power early on. And Blizzard saw that, rolled them back, and gave other people a buff to try and balance the playing field a little bit. Well, Legion Remix had something similar, except it wasn't a bug that was being intentionally exploited. It was just that some mobs and mining nodes and herbs were giving more rewards than Blizzard wanted them to, and they saw players' power spike faster than they wanted it to. And so Blizzard said, no, we didn't intend for that to be the case. And they rolled back anybody who was over 10 million infinite power back down to 10 million power. Manny, how do you feel about Blizzard saying, listen, we are going to control the level of power you can be at in this game mode through no fault of your own?
I am fine with artificial caps. I am less fine when that unintended level of power is obtainable and they don't just explicitly say that they have an intended cap. It should just be built into the game where you reach that 10 million and you stop getting it. So everybody who puts their time into it says, oh, there's a cap here, and they move on with their lives. That to me is straightforward. It is upfront. It is honest. The fact that they come back later and said, oh shoot, you guys are way more diehard than we thought. Nah, and then roll it back. That's people's time that you're messing with. That's people's dedication that you are negating. And it was more acceptable when it was just frogs, and it was just like oh yeah, I can see how you missed that one. But everywhere and anything that you were doing, and so widespread that it wasn't even like somebody trying to like find some abusive behavior to do it. It was just, hey, let's do this, and man, I love this, and look how strong I'm getting in Legion, and man, Blizzard, you made a fun mode. Nah, that feels like a kick in the teeth to me.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a cap. I think they rolled them back, but they can now gain more infinite power if they choose to keep playing. Lex, how do you feel about this? Are you okay with the nerf? Are you glad now that the 5-tank meta and all of the people hard blasting are back on a level playing field with the normies?
So I'm probably not gonna, I mean, you said the same thing last week, so miracles happen. I'm probably never gonna get involved in Legion Remix, so I don't really have a personal opinion. From an outside perspective, I don't really understand the point of Remix other than get really powerful really quick. So I don't really understand why we're punishing, or not punishing, obviously, like we said, this wasn't an exploit. Everyone's acknowledging it wasn't an exploit. It was Blizzard's fault, whatever, moving on. But I guess I'm just like consistently perplexed by the fact that Blizzard's saying one thing we don't want with Legion Remix is for this to just get really powerful really quick. I guess I also agree with Manny. A, communicate caps, and B, if they're not true caps, what is it? Like, what is the... I also don't know how hard 10 million infinite power is to reach. Like, if that's something that everyone's hitting in the first few days, then that's really mean. If that's still a pretty intense amount of infinite power, I mean, I think it's silly, but...
It's tough to get to 10 million. I have some friends who've been playing pretty consistently since the beginning who are at like 2 or 3 million. So this was people who were like, you were putting serious time into the game mode to get this level. But I think if you're putting that time in, I don't know, it feels bad to me. Like I agree with Manny 100% on the frogs. Everybody knew going in, even on the PTR testing, everybody was like, hey, this was an exploit in MOP. It's going to be an exploit now. Just don't let this happen. And then it happened, and then it got exploited. And then they were like, okay, we're going to roll it back. And you could tell that was an exploit because they rolled that back and then buffed other people up to match sort of the same level. But this was none of that. This was just them saying, oh, you got really strong way faster than we thought you were going to. These things were unintentionally giving more power than we wanted them to. Like, well, you didn't notice that in day one? Or like
you're telling me that Blizzard has unintended consequences and doesn't know how to deal with that?
I gotta say that like the things that hurt most about this is that the people hit 10 million and now the drawbridge is being pulled up behind them, right? The people who want to like catch up, they've lowered the experience that you can get from a lot of these activities. So to catch up, it's now harder. These people are just ahead from here on until like enough knowledge or whatever does enough to deflate the difference. The other part to this is, you know what, if you're going to take that away and it wasn't really what you had intended, I wouldn't mind if they just compensated these guys and said, hey, you know what, we're going to cap you at 10, starting on the next reset so that people who want to catch up. Huh?
You can have a bear form from the Mage Tower.
Not a bear form. I was going to give him some bronze. I was going to be like, we're going to convert everything above this 10 million to bronze. Feel free to buy whatever you want. That's your thing. But you are now hard capped. Everybody else, you have till next reset, and then all these activities are going to get scaled in. So the people who really want to push, because really, if you want to push and you want to do that grind and you say, hey, we're going to shut this down, give people a little bit of time to catch up. I think that would have been a far more acceptable answer than what I'm reading from this right now.
Yeah. Good, all good stuff. Blizzard, maybe take some notes for the next remix. We do Warlords remix at the end of, what's the next expansion? Midnight. Yeah, could happen then. We're not done though. This is now a remix only podcast. So for all the listeners who tuned in hoping to hear Alpha Talk or hear us talk with the PC Gamer interview or literally anything else, I'm sorry. We're all remix all the time. We've got more remix news. So I mentioned it earlier, but there was a 5-tank meta that had developed in high keys. People are doing plus 30s, plus 40s right now on Legion Remix, soloing them in some cases. If you're Kess Live, the streamer, Kess is doing carries for people in his chat so that they can get their achievement for a free plus 30 at no cost. So definitely check that out. But there was a meta of 5 tanks, and it was a combination of two things. Tanks do a lot of damage, but more importantly, tanks don't die. So tanks would go in and they were doing this, and healers and DPS mains were like, hey, listen, we would also like to play the game at this high level. We can't get invited to groups and we can't do these keys that tanks are doing because tanks are just going with tanks. So what do we do? So Blizzard today, don't worry about it. We're going to buff healers and DPS on the next weekly reset, which was today. So healers and DPS got buffed by 20% across the board. All damage from healing, all damage and DPS from artifacts has been buffed by 20% for DPS and healers, which is great. This does nothing to solve the fact that they were getting one shot by mechanics, but the natural progression of versatility as you gain your infinite power should help to smooth that out a little bit. So more damage, and they got the versatility buff coming as they gain power. This is great news. But it was reported on Twitter just before we went live that it appears Blizzard Also, without announcing it, nerfed tank damage. Lex, as a DPS main who sometimes dabbles as a tank but has no interest in Remix yet, how do you feel about this buffing of healers and DPS and then the no announcement of a tank nerf?
I mean, like, first of all, not to say the same thing I said last time, I guess I don't understand the point of Legion Remix other than, like, mess around. And so if people are having fun messing around with their tank strats, I mean, like, I actually hear you that the issue is that DPS and healers felt like they couldn't get invites. And that's a complicated issue, and I think buffing that is great. Not to also show my hand for the rest of the episode, Blizzard's not communicating well? That's crazy! What? I don't know where that's coming from. So yeah, I mean, communicate. I let people cheese. It's Legion Remix.
Mm-hmm.
But also, sometimes you're going to have to fun detected and remove a cheese. Tell us you're removing the cheese. But also, I have no skin in this game. So I hope you guys are having a good time.
Yet. We will get you there. So there's currently a petition being signed in the Discord at bit.ly/FazDiscord to get Lex into Legion Remix. While we wait for her to sign up, Manny, any thoughts on the buffing and nerfing, potential nerfing? I don't want to say confirmed. It was only from one source, but it is a source that I trust. Any thoughts or feedback? Are you going to be Legion Remixing soon?
Honestly, they have a holy trinity for a reason. People like to heal, people like the DPS, people like to tank. So I think that if ever two tanks are in the same instance at the same time, the game should lock them into a PvP deathmatch until one dies or rerolls. But more seriously, though, I think that the big thing is that the tanks were able to not get one shot. As you have these things infinitely scaling, and we've had people get up to plus 68 already. I'm hoping by the time this episode finishes, I'll double check back and I can say, nice. But, it's infinitely scaling. Eventually you're going to get to some pain point, and it's going to be either you run out of time because you can't do enough damage, you get killed because the things are doing too much damage, right? And that's it. So, hey, Legion damage spiky, tanks have an advantage. If we're going to cut the tank damage so that they run up against the clock, seems like a way to force them to bring other things, at least a somewhat more balanced spec. So, on paper, everything they've done seems fine, seems smart, seems warranted, but we're going to rewind this video back 5 minutes and go to Lex and say, communicate. And that's all I got to say for that. Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so listeners, I have to let you in on a little secret. I may have lied to you when I said that this show was a remix-only podcast now. I am out of remix news. There's not really much more you can say about the game mode. It's pretty simple. Collect the bronze, buy the things, save the cheerleader, save the world. That's essentially Legion Remix in a nutshell. But we do have lots more to talk about. We had a new alpha build come out today that we're going to get to at the end of the next segment. We'll be starting into that talk. But before we talk about that, there was a couple of interviews this week that came out that made some waves in the Blizzard space. One of them was the Skarzard joining the Pod EC. Skarzard was the former Blizzard employee who recently left due to workload, and just general burnout. Lots of stuff there. And then an interview with Ian Hazzikostas and Crash Reed at PC Gamer that took Twitter by storm. X, the Everything app, blew up when this came out. Not a lot of it. Some of it was due to poor reading comprehension. Some of it was due to maybe the wording and the way that the PC Gamer article put things. But they basically talked about the upcoming expansion of Midnight and the breakdown of add-ons in the game. A couple of quotes I just want to pull out before we toss to Manny for some thoughts. One of the big ones Ian Hazzikostas said, and he has mentioned this a couple times, but I think this is the first time he's put it so bluntly. And it was, if you're playing Warcraft out of the box with no add-ons whatsoever and trying to play at the highest competitive levels, I do think that it's too hard. And I think that consequently, hardly anyone is doing that. Which I think is a great quote for him to actually say, like, listen, and this ties into why they're doing the implementation of their own add-ons in the game so that the game itself is giving you the information that you need to play at those high levels. And on the same token, as Manny is very fond of saying, nothing lives in a vacuum. So yes, them giving us in-game tools is one step, but also the way encounters are being designed, the way classes are being designed. It's all a puzzle that comes together to make the full Midnight picture and what we're changing to. And the other quote I would like to say from Ian is this one. It's a bit longer, but this is what I'm going to throw to Manny. I'm going to have a question for Manny on it. A lot of the class changes in Midnight have not been in the works for years. Instead, they popped up over the past few months. When we first began our conversation with the community around the philosophy of where we were thinking we wanted to go with add-ons, we heard a lot of feedback immediately of, that's all well and good, but how am I supposed to track this mechanic? And internally, we were like, they're not wrong. Manny, you play Elemental Shaman, a class known for spinning plates and being able to line up buffs and identify procs and track things. So that's one of the more complex classes. Do you have any trepidation at all that a lot of these class changes are coming very quickly with not much thought?
No, because the proof is kind of in the pudding. As I've been looking through the classes that I play, so like Shaman, which is a big culprit for like one button bloat, but also just the amount of buffs and setup that you have to do in any particular encounter, like they've stripped that down, but they've also maintained like the core of what it is that like makes a rotation work in terms of like both if you're doing like a casino build where it's like, oh, proc lights up, let me gamble with that proc. Oh good, I got the jackpot, let me continue with that. That continues, and that's been the same for Shaman, Elemental Shaman, since basically Legion. There's been some adjustments and stuff, but that has come through. The stuff that they've added on or introduced since, they've still kept that going, and in fact, Elemental Shaman is one of the few that still has some of the like buffs that you want to track. You still do throw in your Lava Burst a couple of times to empower other spells, but you don't need to be tracking 4 stacks of this and making sure that I've done this before I do that. And so it's a lot more intuitive, especially Enhancement Shaman. And one of the classes that I play, Unholy DK, has basically gotten a rework of sorts, but like it's still very much the core. Like instead of putting festering wounds on enemies and then bursting those wounds for damage, now you're just like increasing a buff on yourself, clearly visible, and then you expend that and get a bunch of ghouls and like, hey, I'm still the undead champion carrying pestilence, running in and doing all that sort of stuff. It's still Unholy DK. It's just that I don't need Tell Me When, Weak Ores, and 5 other add-ons to make it work or make me able to make it work. And I'm really glad for that.
I like that. I think I'm glad you answered that the way you did. And a term I want to stop using is simplified. And I would much prefer to say reduced complexity, because they have not made any of the classes that I've played or that Manny has played or that a lot of other people have played. They haven't made them simple. They're not easy. They've just reduced the complexity that is required to play them, but you still require skill to play them at a high level. So if you're going into Midnight and you're worried, oh man, all of these classes are going to be just BM hunters. Sorry, BM hunters. That is not the case. Even BM hunters aren't going to be BM hunters. That's not the case. So don't worry about that. And yeah, just because these class changes weren't something they had in the pipeline for years doesn't mean that they're receiving any less effort or that they're going to be any less polished than we're used to seeing from Blizzard. Lex, this article also talks about accessibility and bringing in members of the Undaunted community to test things.
I apologize. Yeah. I do want to add one more thing, right?
Uh-oh. Are you about to lambaste them?
There are outliers. I gleamed about, just glazed about how great I love Unholy DK, and Enhancement Shaman is like somewhere in between and great. But there are some where they've pruned too much. Resto Shaman right now doesn't have its identity. Does it have Riptide? It has Riptide.
Done.
Does
it have Healing Tide totem? What do you need?
It has do you single target? Do you AoE target? If you single target, Riptide, Healing Wave. If you AoE heal, Riptide, Chain Heal. There is
Hold on, slow down. I gotta write this down.
there is no real decision in that healing right now, and I think that's problematic. Like, I don't want to go the route of like Dispriest or other healers like Preservation Evoker for a while had like ramp, big burst heal, and like your entire thing was know when the damage is coming so that you can do those moments of glory, and you'd have to like do 5 different things to set up for that. Resto Shaman has never been that, but Resto Shaman also had a number of different things that interacted in order for it to do its heals, and they've stripped it down so that your baseline heals do well, but Resto Shaman has forever and a day been, here's a bunch of things to improve your healing in this situation, and without that, it's almost a 2-button pony, and I think that they need to do something to give Resto Shaman an identity again. And I don't know all the classes, so there may be others like that, but I don't want to say it's perfect all the way through. Some of them are amazing hits, but I have witnessed some misses here.
Okay. I think that sounds great for Resto Shaman. Lex, I know you want to respond, but I want to set it up for you because I have a great setup for this. So the article also talks about accessibility and how they brought members from Undaunted in, because that's something that seems, to initial looks, we talked about last week, may have gotten misplaced. With the tackle on accessibility, the tackle on the class reworks, tackle on design reworks, the add-ons, housing coming in. How do you feel about this PC Gamer article and the current state of Blizzard?
I feel, and this is not going to be surprising to anyone who's listened to the show consistently, I feel like the one consistency I am seeing from Blizzard is that they are flying by the seat of their pants. That is why I am concerned. I'm concerned about the fact that I didn't think to bring in anyone, like disabled gamers, before they turned off combat add-ons. I'm concerned about the fact they didn't realize that turning off, like doing what they did was going to break weak auras, to the point where Ian was saying weak auras weren't going to go away a couple days before weak auras announced they were going away. I am concerned about the fact, to go back to what you said to Manny, I am concerned that they're saying that these are all changes that are happening in the last couple months. Not necessarily because I'm concerned that the class changes themselves lack polish, but because I'm already seeing, in my opinion, signs that they are struggling to maintain, to keep up with the demands to get Midnight out on on time. And I'm concerned that if they're adding on additional things like changing classes significantly, I don't this week, as of recording, they've still not announced when PTR for player housing is going to open up. It was supposed to be on Monday. To my understanding, unless I missed a communication, they just said, oh, it's delayed. Zero further information. Not when they intend to delay it to, not why they delayed it, just straight up, hey guys, not happening on Monday. It'll come one day. Which, to go back to what I said, huge communication issue. Like, you can't just delay something and not tell us what's going on. And especially in a situation like this, to my second point, where it's presumably that it's not ready, right? From what we've seen on Alpha, there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of broken things. We'll get into this I'm jumping all around in our notes, I'm so sorry. But they were saying they're changing, what you can put outside and things like that because they're broken right now. And my guess is that's why they don't want it on PTR, is they just don't have it set up. Dives are broken right now. So they can't really put it on PTR and let people play because it's not ready, which, fair enough, if they came out and they said, hey guys, we're realizing the player housing is really not ready to put out right now. And so we're going to push this back a week, 2 weeks. We're going to touch base with you guys on Wednesday and give you more information. If they gave us any of that, I wouldn't just be sitting here. And frankly, I don't care. I have Alpha. So like, whatever, if they don't put it on PTR, not my problem. But the fact that they are just...
Suck it, plebs.
Well... No, but like
the views of Lex do not necessarily reflect the views of Sean and his counterparts.
Let me clarify. I personally am not affected by this delay because I wasn't
because you are not a pleb.
Because I have Alpha. Okay. But I feel really I have a lot of friends in the Timbermont Tavern Discord who were really excited about this. We made a whole Discord thread just for them to talk about it, and that has now just become them, looking for hints of when it's going to come out and expressing frustration that they aren't able to get the thing they were promised. Like, that sucks. And also, it I feel like the one consistency is that it feels like they're not ready and they don't know when they're going to be ready, which is okay. I've always said they should feel like they can slow things down, but they need to communicate it with us. I was thinking about this today. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna let somebody speak and not just monologue very shortly. I was thinking earlier today that one expansion ago, the three of us were in this cute little studio together talking about how we should be giving Blizzard the benefit of the doubt because they've consistently communicated amazingly. They've consistently done what players have said. They've been listening. We all feel heard. We feel like we can trust them when they come out with things. And we're just so happy with where Blizzard's at. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. At the very least, I think Sean and I are both on the same page that I don't trust a single word out of Ian Hazacostas' mouth anymore. I simply cannot. He's proven wrong, like, too many times. Anyway, I'm feeling worried. I want them to feel like they can delay. I think they probably need to delay. I would rather that Midnight comes out later than bad. And if they don't need to delay, and if these are for things are going on that are reasons other than they're overwhelmed, I want them to talk to me. I want them to give me the reasons. I want them to communicate what is going on and why they're struggling. Just so I can stop sitting here being like, wow, Blizzard is releasing things really slowly and delaying things with a lot of information. That probably means that things are kind of not cooking in Blizzard. Manny, what do you think?
Just before Manny jumps in, I do want to just clarify one thing that Lex mentioned specifically about dies. Not yet implemented does not necessarily mean broken.
No, they said they said in the alpha notes that it's broken.
Oh, did they say the dies were broken? I just thought they said
Dies
they
are
weren't
currently not
implemented
working.
yet.
Yeah,
Currently not
so
working.
it's a known issue.
Oh, never mind. I take it back. Lex was right. It broke. All right,
Which,
Manny.
like, fair enough. Again, it's alpha. Things are going to break. It's not the end of the world. But if this is a consistent habit, like a problem that I'm seeing again and again and again, it stops being, oh, well, sometimes things are delayed. Sometimes we struggle. Sometimes we make decisions in the middle of cons. And it becomes, oh, man, you guys did not think this through. Okay.
Okay.
So last build, the build that they would have put up to do the testing, it was ready. But they came across a bug. Easily replicatable bug, and then that bug became popularized. That bug was the ability for anybody in your neighborhood to pick up your property, steal it, and put it on their land. If they had allowed testing, I feel like it would have been absolutely derailed by this. And therefore, I think it was right for them to delay the testing. Maybe not popularize that bug any further, right? And therefore, don't say it right away. But in the latest build, you can no longer steal somebody's house. So I suspect that we will see the test now that they've put it on the alpha. They see that, like, you can't, like, lowjack somebody's bungalow. And we should see it. I think a bug like that is worthy of being like, okay, you know what? We're not going to get good testing if this starts happening. And I understand the reason, if that is the reason behind it. There may have been others. I am not a developer, right? If that is the reason, that they didn't want to further publicize it. But now that it's gone beyond that, hey, I'd love to get an update, a rescheduling, saying like, hey, we're going to do this. Give people a little bit of heads up to say it will be in 2 weeks at this time. Sorry about it. But I'm not on their butt so much about the communication for this one, just because of all the different things that I've seen that sort of line up. I don't know, tinfoil hat. I like that's where I'm at.
What's the harm in popularizing that? Like, I guess I would believe you more if we were past alpha, but like, who really cares if they steal your alpha house, right? So I guess
it's
I
about
hear you.
proper testing. If you wanted to build your house and then partway through, yoink, your house is gone, and it's like, like, a lot of people are going to be like, this is stupid, I'm not going to test any further. And then they lose their testing data.
They weren't stealing them. They were just moving.
They were picking them up and moving them onto their...
So you still owned your house. It isn't like the bank came and kicked people out. They
True.
still owned
But do you know where that house is?
Yeah, you just hit the button that teleports you to your house, and suddenly you're back at your house.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So I guess I hear you, and that's fair to an extent. And if that is what they come out with, then, like, fair enough. I think a lot of, for me, and maybe I'm just defending myself because I, clearly have a take that I've been pushing on For Azeroth, which is that Midnight, they are struggling with getting Midnights out. It feels like we've had a lot of these conversations where I'm like, this is something that is concerning, and there's always a reason. Like, you're always like, oh well, yeah, but sometimes they do come up with things and cons, and oh well, yeah, but sometimes they do delay, and like, oh well, yeah, but maybe they only do want to test these 2 delves at a time so they can spread it out, or like, oh well, yeah, but if it just keeps happening, at some point you have to Occam's razor it. And you have to say, okay, so maybe it's that they have all of these individual issues that are causing individual delays and causing individual announcements of oh, actually, we're changing classes. Oh, actually, we're making Prey go in the row. Oh, actually, housing is delayed. Or they're flying by the seat of their pants right now. And that's why we're seeing so many of them. And maybe I'm forgetting how many weird little things came up with War Within. And there's always going to be some. It just feels like it is getting to be so many that I can't make it individual issues. It has to be systematic.
I would agree with you that they are flying by the seat of their pants. I don't want this to be taken as trying to rebut that. I think that them flying by the seat of their pants is a bit intentional. I think that they've shortened their timeline. They are making decisions in a lot more periods closer to release and talking about things a lot earlier, and therefore we're seeing decisions change and evolve a lot more than we would if they had been like, we're not ready to share that yet. And so for me, who lived through BFA development and very much on 2 weeks before being I'm really worried about this Azerite power, and they haven't shown it to us, and they're like, trust me, bro. And I'm like, I don't think I can trust you, bro. I would rather that they put it out there and I can throw the feedback and they can screw up, and I'm like, hey, you know what? This is what I've said. And I do think that development has always been messy. We're just seeing a lot more behind the curtain. And can you be anxious about that? I think that you're right to be anxious at times. I think that there's been a number of mess ups where you have rightly called it out on this show, and maybe we do some sort of super clip here to show that. Or we just start a little tally behind you there, Lex, where you can keep that. But I think more often than not, you've been right that this wasn't quite thought out. This seems like they are doing this really close to release. And I think it's not just because they have shortened the period of time that they work on these things, but also because they are showing things a lot earlier. Alpha this time around versus Alpha in Shadowlands is a completely different beast. The focus testing didn't come in until Dragonflight. That's a new thing, right? The level of setup and how things were cemented has utterly changed. So I think we are genuinely just seeing things coming through faster. I'm seeing a lot more things that are untextured models or encrypted boxes or dialogue that is placeholder here, right? That's just floating around, and I don't necessarily think it is a bad thing, even if it does give cause to be anxious.
Yeah, and I mean, you are correct that ultimately we're gonna see soon, right? We're probably less than 6 months off of Midnight, so we'll see when we see. And I mean, so I am a little biased because I do still really Demon Hunter didn't get drastically changed, but because it is already a pretty simple rotation, I do miss Sigil a lot. So I am still feeling a little bit wow, I want at least one more button to press, my man. Although I'm realizing as I speak, I might even test this as you guys can talk about something else. I think they did redo. They walked back the change that I kept whining about, that meta didn't reset all of Havoc's cooldowns. So maybe I'm actually fine. Maybe FazDev, maybe you're actually the light of my life. If you don't hear from me for a few seconds, don't worry about it.
We could get Lex one of those staples easy buttons to put next to her keyboard, so as she's playing Demon Hunter, whenever she feels like she needs an extra button to hit, she can press that to help out. I'm a problem solver.
Thank you so much, Sean. That's a great idea.
You're welcome.
We could just replace her keyboard with like one of those like bop its where you like to have to like twist, turn, bop it.
Anybody who's here for the pre-show knows we should not be encouraging Lex to bop it. And that's your incentive to come check out the pre-shows, folks. All right, so there's a lot going on. That PC Gamer interview is a good read. I definitely recommend it. The Skarsgård episode of the Podyssey. I wouldn't normally plug other podcasts on our podcast unless it was the Starting Zone. Love those guys. But that Skarsgård episode of the Podyssey, definitely check that out because he goes into a lot of stuff. He says wild things. He has some crazy comms like, I left and had not yet heard the term Apex Talents, so I have no idea what they were going to be. And he left about 6 weeks ago. Anyway, definitely I'm glad I said all that stuff after Lex was concerned about the speed with which things are changing. Anyway, let's move into some alpha. We got a new alpha build Wednesday. One giant kudos I want to give. It's been true for 2 Wednesdays in a row, so I'm going to assume that it will be true for every Wednesday for the rest of alpha. But Wednesday is build day on the alpha. We got our first build. We got phase 2 last Wednesday. We're getting phase 3 today. It's out now. As of this recording, it's live. But we got our patch notes. I'm not going to go into the patch notes in a deep dive, just like every week. I definitely recommend reading those on your own. But I am going to hit a couple of quick highlights, and then I'm going to ask Manny what he's most excited to test today, or to test this week. So a couple of those quick highlights, because there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of good stuff that made me really happy. First off, they buffed Taunt. Let's effing go. Taunt got a buff. So previously, the way Taunt would work is that you would taunt a mob, and for 3 seconds, you had increased threat. I'm trying to find the thing. I read it. Anyway, it's now 6 seconds. It was 3 seconds at 600% buff. Now it's 3 seconds at 900% increased threat. 800% increased threat. Huge buff for Taunt. Love this for tanks. This is going to be even better in raid. So this is good in dungeons. There should never really be tank issues in dungeons. That needs to be nipped in the bud right away. But in raid, especially if you're tanking with a brewmaster, a lot of times the co-tank will lose threat almost immediately after they taunted because there's just such a disparity between some tank damages. This should hopefully help rectify that. So huge W there for the taunt buff. We'd love to see it. Another one I do want to talk about because it is so near and dear to my heart, and that is the UI and the add-on restrictions and what changes are coming in this build. One of the big ones that I want to mention is that they are slowly backing away from what we can't do. So previously, an add-on in Midnight could not do anything with the name or with the health value and the power value. So your mana, your energy, stuff like that. Without, like, all it could do is reskin what Blizzard gives you. It could do nothing else. For those of you who don't know, the way most of those add-ons work, like shadowed unit frames or unhalted unit frames, or plater or any of those things, weak ores, they're not reskinning Blizzard UI. They are turning off Blizzard UI and generating their own. Up until this week, that was not possible in Midnight. You could not a shadowed unit frames would not be able to generate player unit frames. They would have to reskin Blizzard unit frames. Where that's a problem is A, you can only display the information they give you, and B, any changes you make to it are going to be applied across the board, and you can't make specific changes and like set points for like percentages. You can't like make changes to colors and stuff like that. But this, they have backed off on that a little bit, and it says that they have added several new APIs to allow unit frame add-ons to show health and power values more accurately. So those add-ons will now be able to, like they do now, generate their own health and power values. This is a far stretch from what we need for these add-ons to be at the state that they're at now, but it is a step in the right direction, which is what brings me joy. We want the ability to customize our UIs. Everybody is in agreement, lockstep across the board in Warcraft. We don't want computational add-ons and weak auras solving bosses for us. But I think like a huge majority of the player base, I don't want to guess at a number, but I'm going to say 90% because I'm going to guess at a number. I think 90% of them would like the ability to customize their UI so that it looks the way they want it to look, with their unit frames, their nameplates, and their cooldown manager or their class weak aura pack style thing. I think people like to have that customizability, and I think they should have that. And I am definitely glad that we are moving to a world where that is going to be potentially more possible. We're still a long way off. I spoke to an add-on dev for a very popular add-on, and he said, yeah, this puts us at about 5% of what we need. But that's 5% we didn't have last week. So we celebrate. And another one I want to talk about, this is the last one I'm going to talk about. I'm going to throw it to you, Manny, but there's new sounds in the cooldown manager. So the cooldown manager is now tracking pandemic timings. If you don't know what that means, read the blog article, read the post by Linksy. It explains it. It's been in the game for like 15 years, but was never actually explained in-game anywhere. You had to go to third-party sites to find out what it meant. But it's in the game now. It's officially in the game. But they've added new sounds. There's a whole list of sounds, animal sounds, bells, whistles, mechanical sounds, and text-to-speech for all your cooldown managers. And not only that, but there is a separate volume control for those sounds, separate from all of your other game sounds. So you can make them as loud or as quiet as you want if you do use them. I'm really happy because up until now, all we had was 4 different dings and text-to-speech. But now you have like air horns and bike horns and sword sounds and all this stuff. It was an exciting day, a lot of great patch notes. The future is looking good. I'm very excited about what's to come. Manny, how do you feel about the patch notes, and what are you looking forward to in this week's alpha build?
Honestly, it's again like Alpha 2, where they're constantly reiterating on stuff, so I'm really happy that we're getting all these updates. Yes, they've added some more sounds. That's good. I hope they continue to add on. Really, every time they have somebody in the sound studio and they're like adding in stuff for like Murloc number 4 or Dragon number 7 or whatever creature, just throw some of those into the cooldown manager. So we just have a litany of, in fact, the entirety of the library should be opened up so that we could just, I don't even care. I just want Sylvanas saying, I shall never kneel whenever I have like defensive up or something. Just give it to me. Like, they have such a library. They don't need to be like making special sounds for this. If it's too long for me, that's my problem. I'll go pick something else. I do like the changes that they're making to cooldown manager. Literally, pandemic was something we talked about last week. I brought it up and I was like, hey, this is something that's missing. I know we don't often put stuff out there, but like, if you guys listen to the weekly No Leaver, they always have some amazing guests that are talking about stuff. And just, if you talk to any of them, they're always giving like just a bunch of feedback about what can be done better about this game. So there's always going to be stuff. The biggest thing that I want from this is for them to realize how much work is left and maybe understand that they should allow the add-ons that have put in those years of work to coexist until they can make up the gap. Right? I don't think that they can honestly say that they are at 90% or even on track to get to 90% by the launch of Midnight. And maybe I don't want to echo other people from this show. I don't want to steal their bit, but I don't want these guys working through Christmas. I don't want these guys working through Thanksgiving, right? I do not want the crunch. And this seems like a big workload. So to me, if they want that clean break is in the last Titan, or maybe after the World Soul Saga. It is not Midnight. I think they are going to cause a lot of issues. And now that they're bringing in some diverse voices into the conversation about how they're doing this stuff by bringing in people from Undaunted and hopefully other communities, maybe that should inform their process for how they do things going forward. And that way, they will be better set up to do these changes in the future. Because I don't know what the inside of that room looks like, but I hope that it's only the walls that are monotonously white.
We had a saying in the Navy. I'm going to fire this over to Lex because she is nodding and snapping her fingers and she is feeling what Manny is saying and agreeing with him. We had a phrase when I was in the Navy. Every time is like the first time. And Manny, I hear your echoing. I echo your sentiment that hopefully lessons are learned here. But I fear that much like the Canadian Navy, every time is like the first time. Lex, what do you got for us, Queen?
Oh yeah, I mean that's been one of my ongoing issues with Blizzard is it feels like very often the people who are relevant are not in the room until like I remember talking about this a lot during Shadowlands because they had the character who was like very clearly a trans man and then they were like and they use they them pronouns until everyone was like excuse me, what do you mean they use they them pronouns, and then they adjusted, and I have said consistently that was very frustrating for me because like yes it's great that they adjusted, but why was there not a trans person in the room, right? Like, why was there no one to call it out? And I've been saying they were doing a really good job with story. It does seem like they're doing a really, really excellent job of making, by and large, with exceptions, making sure that the people who are relevant to the story, who might have lived experiences they can talk through, are in that room. I do think this was a miss. I don't think that Blizzard should have had to wait for disabled players to say, hey, add-ons are critical to making the game disability friendly, for them to suddenly be like, oh, do you guys like want a voice in the room? Do you guys, should we have a disabled person talking with us about like what's, and that's even more complicated because like we were talking about last week, the sheer number of potential ways that disability can affect gameplay is so huge. And this, I'm trying to remember if I said this on this podcast or if it was just something that I said to my rating guild when I was supposed to be prepping them for Demencius, but instead listening to the sound of my own voice, is I worry a lot about them taking away add-ons because when I think about the things that make me really happy with cooldown add-ons, with, you know, weak auras to a large extent, with things like that, it's that there are people who have sat in a room and just focused on like what is anything that anyone could ever possibly want in a cooldown manager, like what's any little thing that they might ever want to tweak, how can we put that in? And I don't think Blizzard has the resources to do that. And even if they do, I don't want them to. I don't want a dev spending that many hours thinking about every possible iteration of like, what might somebody want, you know, different, like, oh, this is rage. And also if this is on cooldown, also if they have this buff, like how can they combine that all together to do a pop-up? I worry about the sheer number of like hours that would take. And to some degree, what they're doing is they're making it less complex. So you don't really need to worry so much about like, oh, this is I only use when my rage is building and I'm doing this. But like, I do, at the very least, I agree that they need more time. Like I said, the one thing that is just consistently like, for example, I said previously in this episode that I don't trust anything coming out of Ian Hazzikos's mouth. I don't think Ian was lying when he said that he did not, that the plan was not to turn off weak auras. I think they just quite genuinely had not thought through what the decisions they were making would mean for a weak auras developer and their decision to keep going. And that, if nothing else, even if they do decide they want to turn off cooldown, I mean, at this point it's done. Like they're going to turn off add-ons. Whatever. Tragic, but what can you do? I really do think they have not considered all of the implications. And I agree with Manny that I want them to slow down. If they're realizing like, oh, Jesus, we're getting really long posts on Reddit saying that we didn't think about how this would affect disabled players and we have to suddenly scramble to fix that. Maybe that's a sign that you aren't actually ready to announce this. If you're getting clowned on because one of your lead developers looked kind of stupid because he said something that was immediately proven untrue, maybe that's a moment to think about like, oh, we don't really know the implications. And that probably means that we shouldn't just, you know, be like, you'll figure it out as you go. That's my take.
I want to say that this could have all been
an email.
Not even an email. This could have all been like cut, like just gone ahead of if they had done a summit meeting, done a Discord with the add-ons that they felt they needed to integrate into the game, and just said, what are the things that you have learned as you've made this add-on? We're going to be doing these adjustments. Here's the thing, you're under NDA. Here's the stuff that we're looking at. What does this look like to your add-on? What does this shut down on in your add-on? Is this something that you think people can do without? And that would have gotten them such focused feedback before they even had a broader conversation. And they could have done that before they even got a developer working on this. Now they have to have the developer go back in, or a team of developers go back in and readjust this sort of stuff. They have to do the work twice. They have to have their people in PR getting yelled at because they didn't consider something. And you know what? I don't expect them to consider everything. They have more resources than these developers, but they don't have the history, the time, and the backlog of changes that have created the DBM that we know today, that didn't have interrupts. You know, the current one that got added today can't tell me how many how many interrupts happened, right? How many times somebody used a stun, all this stuff that like DBM has today, and they're replacing it, but they're cutting this stuff out because apparently intelligent thought like, hey, you're not interrupting enough, or you never use this single interrupt, is something I guess I shouldn't know in the middle of a dungeon. Like,
well, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Hazy Cost himself said they were going to do that, and they were going to work really closely with add-on developers, and then it does not appear that they did. I haven't played with the damage meter, and I think even when we were talking about the damage meter, we were saying, well, obviously they're going to have things like interrupts. I didn't realize they didn't. That's silly. Yeah, I mean, as more so, like, you know, in dungeons, that's important. As a raid leader, we use that all the time to figure out, you know, if we're really struggling to get interrupts off, who we need to whisper and be like, hey, man, this is like an everyone sort of thing. And if that's gone, that actually really sucks. Like, if we have to continuously go back to logs to figure out what's happening. And yeah, there's no way that anyone in details wouldn't be able to say, hey, put this in.
Yep.
I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna cut in. I think as the host, it's my job to cut in. I just want to say you both know how I feel, and I feel all of your frustrations. You don't even have to talk to the add-on devs. Just tell Luctose we are back. That's what we want for our cooldown manager. It's free. You can get it on Wago. Yeah, like that was the part that. Anyway, I'm not gonna say that that's the part that frustrated me, because it's like, did you even play the game that you're building these things for? Because you don't. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is, I don't know what's important. We have a new alpha build this week. Frustrations are high, tensions are high. So I'm going to lighten it up. We're going to end the show. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Everybody likes when I freak out. So I'm going to tell you a story of me freaking out this week while playing the alpha. But it's a good story. And I call this story. Hold on. I have to bring it back up again. I call this story is called This House Is Not a Home. One man's sad journey across the Founder's Point. I want to start this by saying I am a massive, massive fan of housing. I am so genuinely excited to I'm still begging. I'm gagging for a YouTube channel that is just time-lapse builds of housing in Warcraft. Please, I need this. If you are somebody sent me a link today for Mego Art, I think their name is, and it might end up being a housing thing. If this is you, if you have something like this, if you're looking for $1 million idea, I will literally watch that channel on a stream nonstop. But I said to myself, and I knew it was me because I recognized my voice, you should try out housing. You keep saying that your house is just going to be a mattress on the floor in a single room. Give it a shot, because you see all these beautiful creative things that people are creating, like Bear's Adventures, and there's just so many Miss Marvel, I think it is, on Twitter. So many beautiful, gorgeous houses being created. Tally Essen made like a shop across a lake with a sign. Somebody else, I think So Breezy, made a cannon. It's just, there's so many beautiful houses. I love it. So I said, I'm going to try it myself. And I went in. For those of you who know me, know that minor irritations and small frustrations are my downfall. And immediately off the bat, I could not figure out how to customize the outside of my house. It took 17 minutes for me to see the toggle button on the right that says customize the exterior. So this was how it started. My blood pressure was already up. I was slowly starting to think that I was maybe just missing the features. But then I found it. I started to customize the outside of my house. I got it the way I looked. I had a nice little plot on the beach, 24, prime location, beach real estate, no neighbors. It's fantastic. And then I went in to do the inside of my house. And at first, I was like, oh, I'll do the tutorial because it says here's a tutorial you can do. So I started with the tutorial. And then I got to a step in the tutorial where it said to place some things. I had to place 4 items. And I placed a fireplace, and I couldn't get it to go into the wall like I've seen some things do. And that made me sad, so I just left it in the middle of the room. I'll get to why I couldn't. Because in the tutorial, I found out after the fact, you can't adjust the sizes of things, and you can't turn off the clipping when you're in the tutorial. So anyway, I realized afterward. I put a window up, and then I saw, oh, I have a different type of window. And I tried to put that window up, and it snapped into the floor. And like under the floor, I could not see the window, but I could see the light from the window coming up through the floorboards. And I was like, oh, no. And this was the 4th piece that I needed to add to the interior of my house to complete the tutorial. I was so frustrated. I was just trying to click it, and I couldn't click it. And I was using the clean button, and I couldn't clean it. And I just had this glow from under the floorboards from this window. And I was just like, I'll just have a floor. Maybe I'll put a rug down, or maybe I'll just have this light in the floor. It's like I have a basement tenant and they have their lights on or something. So then I tried to make the window on the wall bigger. I was like, I want to have a big window. And I kept clicking the button to allow you to adjust things, advanced. But you can't use advanced if you're still in the tutorial. And I had placed my 4th item in the tutorial, but it was the window that was in the floor. So it didn't register that my tutorial was complete. So I was like, okay, I'll just abandon the tutorial. And then I won't be in tutorial anymore. And I'll be able to make this window that I want to make big. So I abandoned the tutorial. But when you abandon the tutorial, it doesn't actually remove you from the state of tutorial. So then I thought, okay, all right. I'll go pick the quest up again, and I'll come back, and I'll try to place something else in the house to see if that triggers it. The tutorial quest is not on a quest giver in the neighborhood. I flew all over Founders Point, and the quest could not be repicked up. So I said, okay, all right, I'm on my Alliance character. I will just log over to my Horde character, and I'll make a house in Razor Wind Pass, and it's going to be fine, and the roof will just be red. So I logged off. I logged onto my Blood Elf, and I hit the little button that takes you to the housing area, and it put me in Founders Point at the house with the window in the floor. So then I thought, okay, maybe if at that point I rage quit. I hit Alt F4, I turned the game off. I was streaming. I was like, okay, I'm done. Housing's not for me. I really need a YouTube channel of time-lapse builds that I can just watch because I love it. It's beautiful. I want to be able to do it. I just can't. I can pull a boss 400 times till it dies. I can't get this goddamn window out of the basement. So then I logged back in. I was like, I'm getting this window out of the basement. I'll just move my plot. Surely, if I move my house, I'll be able to get this window out. So I moved the house. Didn't get the window. Or so I tried to move the house. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't move. So then I went back in, and there's a button where you can like reset the whole interior of your house that I finally found. I reset everything. Window gone. Success. I got to the point where it asked me if I wanted to do the tutorial. I hit skip tutorial. No longer tutorial. I can now do advanced. I turned off clipping. I made my fireplace bigger. I put it into the wall. Fireplace, gorgeous. This fireplace was the most perfect fireplace that it was. Many people were saying this was the most beautiful fireplace they'd ever seen. And I had it placed in the wall. And then I thought, I'm going to put a nice big comfy chair next to that fireplace. So I took a chair out. It was a big comfy cushion chair. And I placed it next to the fireplace. I was like, that's great. But the chair looked really small next to the giant fireplace. So I thought, well, I got to make this chair bigger. I'm going to scale it up. So I scaled the chair up, and then it floated in the air. And then I logged off housing. And I will now live in a house with a mattress on the floor.
Sean, if it makes you feel better, when I was trying to play with the advanced mode, one of the first things I did was try to move things on like the 3 fancy axes, and I moved my mouse a little too fast, and it just right out of the house.
Yeah. I love housing. I think it is some of the best content on Twitter right now. If you're on X, the Everything app, look up Warcraft housing content. It's beautiful. The team has done an amazing job. I just spoke today. I sent a tweet at Jesse, the developer who's working on it, one of the developers working on housing. And I said, hey, listen, I'm really bad at this, but I would love to be able to come home and have just my pets walking around the house. And he said, Ian has a more in-depth full answer in one of the Q&As, which is probably a lie. He didn't say that. I added that. But he said that is something we are working on, not for launch, but we want it with the future build. We just have to figure out the random pathing first. And that was the best news I've ever heard. I'm going to have a house full of cats and dogs and maybe some rats, whatever other pets I can find, and a mattress on the floor. It's going to be great.
Which frankly is my dream, Sean. Like, you, just to be clear, you described my IRL dream house.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, that's my trip with housing. I love it so much and I'm so bad at it. Is there anything you've ever loved that much that you're terrible at, Manny?
Podcasting.
No, something you're bad at, Manny.
I love it. I love it. I think that's the end of the show. Do you guys have anything else you want to say before I butcher this ending?
Oh, yes. We want to say congratulations to the people who participated in our giveaway. We had one giveaway on Twitter or X, the Everything app, and we had one giveaway on Instagram, and this was for the Dreadlord Regalia. So, over on Instagram, we want to say congratulations to Blue Crucial, who won over there, and on X, we want to say congratulations to Archmage Sar, who won over there. So, you'll be contacted by the show, and congratulations on your prizes. You can wrap up now.
Okay. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for being here with us for this little bit over an hour. We really appreciate it. We're going to see you next week. If you want to join us for the live show, come over to bit.ly/Faz Discord. Get into the conversation. You can tell us how wrong we are about our opinions, or you can give me your links to your Housing Time Lapse YouTube channel. And until next time, may all your hits be crits.